All right, chapter 2, section 6, the last section in this chapter, and probably the most important, or one of the most important for your projects, because we are talking about ancient empires. Now, what's the difference between an empire and a civilization? I'll tell you. An empire is a single ruler who governs a number of different lands or people. So, civilization would be parts of an empire. So an empire is very, very big. It's much bigger than a civilization. And ancient empires typically developed when people conquered other people through force. So Mesopotamia was the first empire, but the most famous probably is the Roman Empire. And we're going to talk about the Athenian Empire in modern-day Greece. So the Athenian Empire is in Greece, which is just southeast from Europe in the Mediterranean Sea there. And the Greeks called themselves Hellenes. And they all had the same ethnic background, same customs, spoke the same language. However, their city-states, much like cities in a state today, preferred to stay independent. But they came together politically if they were ever threatened. So they'd work together if they were threatened by outside forces. So Athens was a city-state, and you've all heard of Athens before, and it's really, really popular because of the way its government was run. They ran on a democracy, which is like we do today, so very, very advanced. People had the say, but they were called a direct democracy, which means rule by the people, but carried out through participation in the government. So citizens participated, but women, foreigners, slaves were excluded from citizenship. So if you had to be a citizen to participate and vote, so it was very, very advanced in the way it governed, and the people had a choice. So Athens is very, very popular. So Athens is doing really, really well, but war is threatening. Throughout the classical age, people are trying to take over Athens and take its land. So Athens is still in power, and they are kind of leading, and they keep getting attacked by the Persians. So they get together all the city-states, and they get together all these kind of locations surrounding them, and they form what's called the Delian League. And the Delian League is basically a group of a ton of city-states trying to fend off foreigners, led by Athens. Now Sparta is another city-state that was really strong militarily. Athens was great in the navy, in the water, and they were kind of rivals. So after years and years of leadership, Sparta kind of put together their own alliance to try and take down Athens, and they eventually did. And it was a long, long war called the Peloponnesian War against each other, and Sparta had taken control of Greece. And the following century, Athens made a recovery and restored its empire, but then all of Greece was conquered later down the road, and we'll talk about that. But the Athenian Empire and Greece was very important. Now, the second and probably most popular, the Roman Empire. So Greek city-states had their own functioning ways until about 100s BCE, and they were crushed by a new Mediterranean powerhouse. The Roman Empire began as a city-state in the middle of Italy and grew through military aggression. So they were attacking people, and they kept growing and growing and growing. And they were what's called a republic, which is a system of government in which people rule through representatives who govern according to the law. So I would be the class representative, you all would tell me what you want, and I would act it out. So a republic is a group of people, not necessarily one ruler. So they were called the Roman Republic. And they had this republic, and everything was going well. There was three main parts: popular assemblies, magistrates, and the Senate. In assemblies, male citizens voted and elected magistrates where people carried out the laws, and they selected members of Senate. So it's kind of a complex system, basically just people represented speaking for the majority. And they grew really powerful, and they kind of surrendered, they became very popular, but later they became an emperor, and the emperor gained more and more power. So Rome was an empire for much of its time, and it was influenced by the military. It was very strong, very aggressive, and the state's leaders came from the military. It was always at war, And there was 3 major wars. You don't need to get into it, but that's how they gained power, is by fighting. And finally, we have one of the great leaders, Julius Caesar. And Julius Caesar made himself the sole ruler of Rome. So we left a republic, and now we've got an emperor who basically kind of rules everything on his own. And then we have Augustus Caesar. Augustus means majestic, and that's the title he gave himself. And what happens under this guy? We have Pax Romana, 200 years of peace. The emperor kind of declares there will be no more fighting, and we have 200 years of peace. So in the 200 years of peace, called the Pax Romana, we have the Romans continuing to build roads and continuing to expand, so now it's easier to spread cultural diffusion, which is the spread of ideas, if you remember. So Roman Empire is getting bigger and bigger, but we've got a Pax Romana ends when the empire is battered or taken down by a bunch of civil wars, infighting, people fighting each other. There's no stability, and the Pax Romana ends, and then this new leader basically splits Rome in half, and that's the end of the Roman Empire.